Welcome to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast, your weekly news roundup of hunting, fishing, trapping, and conservation stories from around the Gem State. Hosted by Fish and Game's Public Information Specialist, Connor J. Lease.
And welcome back to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast. I'm sorry I lied to you. I thought I was going to be traveling this week, heading up to Coeur d'Alene, but plans fell through. Not enough snow to track mountain lions, so here I am sitting down recording another week. And this week we're talking about largemouth bass in Coeur d'Alene's chain lakes, why we stock sterile fish, and some upcoming flight surveys in various parts of the state. But first, if you haven't locked up the firearms for the year and still have some nooks and crannies in your deep freezer, here are 3 small game species that'll help fill that void and get you outside this winter. Small game hunting through winter is a great way for hunters young and old to develop their skills and confidence without breaking the bank. You don't need specialized or expensive gear to hunt them, just a .22 long rifle and or a shotgun, warm clothes, and boots suitable for hiking. The skills learned while small game hunting, including tracking, handling a firearm, field dressing, and cooking the animals you harvest, harken back to the early days of the sport and later translate directly to big game hunting. In particular, learning to process and clean small game helps new hunters understand the basics of field dressing before they move to larger game. Seeing the woodlands blanketed in snow and pocked with fresh game tracks is like following a treasure map and instilling in these young minds the habits and patterns of various small game species is a great way to connect youth hunters to the land, to the animals, and to the sport of hunting. So, here are 3 of the most commonly found and exciting small game species to hunt this winter, starting with red squirrels. They were barking at you all fall. You're tiptoeing into elk country when all of a sudden a Douglas fir starts chirping excitedly at your unwelcomed arrival. The resident red squirrel living on the 5th floor of that lodgepole provides both veteran and rookie hunters an excellent opportunity to extend their hunting season. Red, or pine squirrels, not to be confused with their larger cousins, fox squirrels, which are also reddish in color, are native to Idaho and have a wide distribution. As most big game hunters will attest, they are active during the day, stockpiling seeds, conifer cones, nuts, and fruits before winter snow buries the forest floor. Because of their diet, after all, we are what we eat, red squirrels have an earthy, kind of almost nutty flavor, pun intended. If you're lucky enough to bag a couple of red squirrels this season, try any number of crock-pot recipes. Squirrels can be lean and tough and are best broken down slow cooker style as a hearty addition for soups, stews, or tacos, or even sauteed in butter and herbs. Next up, we got forest grouse. Forest grouse are crafty, clever, mid-sized birds that inhabit much of the state's forest. Commonly found on public lands, they provide a hunting opportunity for nearly anyone. There are 3 species of forest grouse in Idaho, all of which are native to the state. We got duskies, or blues, ruffs, and spruce grouse. Grouse have an uncanny knack for bursting out of a tree roost when a hunter comes too close, oftentimes giving the hunter a near heart attack. However, these birds will sometimes ignore humans altogether as you creep in for a close shot. Depending on your preference, you can either attempt to shoot flushing grouse on the wing with a shotgun or stationary grouse in the trees with a small caliber rifle. An important reminder that grouse hunters need to leave one wing attached to the carcass during transport. Once plucked, de-winged, and ready to process, hunters can serve up the breast and thighs a number of ways, including sauteed in butter and thyme in a skillet, which is my favorite way, or dusted in flour and deep fried. And finally, there's rabbits and hares. Few hunting experiences rival winter rabbit and snowshoe hare hunting. The trees are stripped bare and the air is crisp and silent. Hunting for these species is an incredible way to introduce youth hunters to the sport. Sure, it's 25 degrees out, and the thermos of hot chocolate back at the truck sounds pretty darn nice, but following the tracks and habits of wintering small game species is a fun way to get family and friends outdoors. Seeking out rabbits and hares can also be an inexpensive way to introduce youth to hunting and field dressing. This time of year, you'll need to have a sharp eye as rabbits and hares are notoriously nimble, often found in thick brush, thorn bushes, and fallen pine boughs. One option is for hunters to keep a high point overlooking a relatively clear area and hunt with a scoped, small caliber rifle, keeping an eye on openings near cover. Another is for hunters to attempt to flush out rabbits by walking through areas of dense cover and to harvest them on the run using a shotgun. If using the latter approach, it's not a bad idea to hunt with a friend or two, which will help you cover more territory and potentially flush more rabbits. And yes, a dog may also count as a friend. If you or your budding hunter are quick enough to bag one this season, you'll find that rabbits and hares are among the easiest to skin in the field. After removing the feet at the ankle knuckle, make a small incision up the back of each hind leg. Then pull the skin of each leg towards its pelvis, then continue pulling the hide towards the head, down the midsection, as if you were taking its sweater off. Once cleaned and quartered, rabbits can make an excellent addition to stews and roasts, or even deep fried. So whether you're new to hunting or if you're a longtime veteran, hunting for small game can be an exciting way to keep your marksmanship sharp and your freezer full during the colder months. Remember, hunters, you're going to need a 2026 hunting license beginning on January 1st. For more information on upland and small game seasons and regulations, go check out the 2024 through 2025 Fish and Game Upland Game Turkey and Fur Bearer Seasons and Rules booklet, available online or at authorized licensed vendors, or just hit the link in the show notes and read this article. Our second story this week is coming out of our Panhandle region, where a new study is underway to learn about largemouth bass in Coeur d'Alene's chain lakes. Fish and Game has launched a new study to better understand largemouth bass populations in the 8 chain lakes connected to Coeur d'Alene Lake. The project was developed through ongoing conversations and collaboration with local bass anglers and bass fishing groups. Currently, our staff manages each of the chain lakes as an independent fishery, with lake-specific harvest regulations for largemouth bass and other species. The study seeks to determine whether that long-standing management approach aligns with how bass actually use the system. Here's Mike Thomas, Regional Fisheries Biologist.
Looking ahead, this research project is going to provide a really strong foundation of information that I think we're going to be able to use to address future questions or concerns for these fisheries beyond just our routine monitoring of the populations. My big hope moving forward is that we can ask the right questions and gather the right information to make sure that 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, these fisheries are still producing amazing largemouth bass for everyone to enjoy.
The study involves capturing largemouth bass, recording their length and weight, surgically implanting tracking transmitters, releasing the fish in the lake where they were caught, and then monitoring their movements over the next year. Located at the southern end of Coeur d'Alene Lake along the Coeur d'Alene River near the town of Harrison, the chain lakes provide excellent fishing opportunities for a variety of warm water species. The system is especially well known for producing trophy-sized largemouth bass. Now, for more information or questions about the study, please contact the Panhandle Regional Office. You can also follow the Panhandle Regional Facebook page to get regular news and updates. Also, check out their highlight reel titled New Fish and Game Study Underway on Largemouth Bass in Coeur d'Alene's Chain Lakes, now on our YouTube channel. Now, speaking of fish research, our biologists down in the Upper Snake region just put out this really interesting story about why there is a need to stock sterile fish. Many of the trout that Idaho Fish and Game stocks into Idaho's streams, lakes, and reservoirs cannot reproduce. Stocking sterile trout in these locations is an intentional management action. The most commonly stocked sterile fish in Idaho is, of course, the rainbow trout. Our fish biologists stock triploid rainbow trout, meaning these fish have 3 complete sets of chromosomes instead of 2. This, in turn, makes them sterile. Our hatchery staff induce triploidy by interrupting the early stages of embryo development shortly after fertilization with high pressure, which causes the eggs to retain an extra set of chromosomes and renders the fish sterile. Other times, we use hybrid combinations such as tiger trout or tiger muskie that are naturally sterile. Sterile fish are an important tool in a fisheries manager's toolbox because they allow fishery managers to have more direct control over a population's density and their potential to cause detrimental genetic impacts to our wild fish. However, before we can discuss fish management scenarios that involve stocking sterile versus fertile fish, we must first understand how hatchery trout impact wild trout populations. There's a lot of misunderstanding on this topic, and it has been the subject of major research efforts that our staff have conducted. Intuitively, some anglers may be concerned that stocking catchable-sized trout, which are 8 inches or greater, in systems supporting existing wild trout could result in negative impacts to the wild trout population due to competition for food and space. However, the lifespan of a catchable-sized trout from a hatchery is quite short in streams and rivers. These fish are raised in a very different environment to wild populations, which contributes to a far shorter lifespan. In a study carried out in Idaho waters, the research team observed no impacts of stocking high densities of hatchery catchable rainbow trout on wild rainbow trout in several Idaho streams. Here's what the research team found. Quote, the lack of population level effects from stocking catchables was not surprising considering the high short-term mortality and the socially and physiologically naive behavior typically exhibited by hatchery catchables stocked in lotic systems. Gosh, a mouthful. As you could probably tell, I'm not a fisheries biologist. The take-home message is that hatchery catchable trout have no effect on wild trout in Idaho streams and rivers. Thus, the addition of sterile rainbow trout catchables is a strategy used to augment catch rates and/or provide additional harvest opportunity. Sometimes our staff stocks sterile fish because we want to have more control over the numbers of fish as to meet the fisheries management goals we have for that waterway. An example would be stocking tiger trout in a mountain lake. If our goal for a mountain lake is for it to have trophy tiger trout, then we will want it to keep that population at a relatively low population density. At lower densities, the fish will not have as much competition for resources and thereby have faster growth rates, which lead to an overall bigger size at maximum ages. This allows the fish to grow to larger sizes and thus producing trophy fisheries. More examples include Birch Creek and the Henry's Fork at Max Inn. Birch Creek has healthy wild rainbow trout and brook trout populations. While these populations are healthy, Birch Creek is a popular fishery and garners substantial angling effort. The addition of sterile rainbow trout catchables increases angler catch rates and harvest opportunity beyond what Birch Creek can support naturally, and provides these benefits without negatively affecting wild trout survival, growth, abundance, or genetics. Another example is the Max Inn reach of the Henry's Fork Snake River. When our staff considers stocking hatchery fish in a stream or river supporting wild reproducing trout, such as the Henry's Fork, we often don't want the stocked fish to influence the genetics and consequently the behavior and traits of the wild trout present, which have proven to be well adapted to local stream conditions. Stocking sterile rainbow trout into the Max Inn reach of the Henry's Fork augments angler catch while protecting the genetics of native Yellowstone cutthroat trout present in the Henry's Fork and Henry's Lake outlet. In some cases, though, Fish and Game does stock fertile diploid fish which can reproduce. Here, our goal may be for the stocking to supplement the population and contribute to the fisheries recruitment. A perfect example of this is Mackey Reservoir, which we've talked a lot about on this podcast. Mackey Reservoir, like a lot of western reservoirs, goes through large seasonal fluctuations in water level. This can lead to recruitment problems, so we stock fertile fish to mitigate this bottleneck. In other cases, such as Henry's Lake, we will stock fertile Yellowstone cutthroat trout that naturally want to migrate into spawning tributaries to spawn in order to boost natural production in Henry's Lake tributaries and to continue to provide a viable egg source to fill hatchery requests for not only Henry's Lake, but several other waters where Henry's Lake cutthroat trout are stocked throughout the state. So while our staff often stocks sterile fish, all this to say there are many cases where stocking fertile fish better aligns with our fisheries management objectives. Overall, there are several things that our staff take into consideration regarding our fish stocking strategies. The ability to use sterile hatchery fish in Idaho greatly increases the opportunities for hatcheries to supplement fisheries across the state. While the situation and reasons for different stocking strategies are dependent on location, our staff consistently strives to preserve, protect, perpetuate, and properly manage the fishery resources in this great state. Super cool research and a lot of brilliant questions being asked in this story. Hit the link below to read the story or call up the Upper Snake Region's office if you have any follow-up questions. All right, boys and girls, that's it for major stories this week. Let's hit the rapid fire bulletin. Beginning in early December, Fish and Game staff will take to the air to get a closer look at deer numbers, including several low-level helicopter surveys planned in the Salmon and Chalice areas. The purpose here is to gather abundance and herd composition information that helps game managers understand population numbers and trends. The flights will be completed in hunting units 21, 21A, 29, 37, 37A, and are expected to take a week if the weather permits. The same thing is happening down in the Magic Valley region. Over the next several weeks, wildlife biologists from our Magic Valley region will be flying mule deer herd composition surveys and capture operations across many of the region's game management units. Area residents should be aware that they may see the survey helicopter flying low over the landscape over the next several weeks. Some of Idaho's lakes and ponds in the Southwest and Magic Valley regions are soon going to be bolstered with 4,500 catchable-sized rainbow trout this December. We asked our Fish and Game hatchery staff to boil down some of the most notable stocking highlights coming to your local fishery this month. Hit the link below to see a full list. Alrighty, that's all the news we have for this week. Thanks for putting an ear to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin. If there's something on your mind or if you got a question related to Fish and Game matters, feel free to drop us a line at podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Again, that's podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll catch you next week.